Welcome back to another FlipBros Path of Exile build video. Today we're going to be going over my starter range build. The build revolves around gas arrow. So pre-gas arrow, I ended up using poison burst arrow, vine arrow, and toxic growth. And this combination of three skills seemed really fine to get me to gas arrow. And then once you get gas arrow, the build really gets interesting. So how does this build play? Once you have gas arrow, you can shoot a gas arrow down and essentially throw a fire ring in there, and when someone who is ignited walks through your gas, this will explode and ignite everyone. It's a lot of fun. You can fill up the entire screen. The first skill here is gas arrow. The second skill here is flame wall. When you are trying to burst a big boss down or a rare or a pack, toxic growth benefits from your gas arrow. So if you shoot a gas arrow down, throw toxic growth from there, they all will be immediately empowered. And you can do this a few times while that gas arrow is up. For my persistent skill, I'm using Plague Bearer. This is just because we're doing so much poison damage. This is up all the time. So I'm casting Poison Nova pretty much on cooldown. I have Barrage slotted. Now, Barrage I thought was going to work with Toxic Growth, and I'm not entirely sure it does. So if you see here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think there's a 7, 8, roughly 8 explosions. If I empower Barrage first and then cast it again, I'm pretty sure I still have 8 explosions. So I'm not entirely sure if that works with Toxic Growth. But it definitely works with gas arrows, so if you want to have more gas clouds that explode with the flame wall, that's fun to do. And then I'm also using Contagion. It's a debuff that does chaos damage over time, and if someone dies while under the spell, it will spread to nearby enemies, and when it spreads, it ends up doing more damage. In a big group of enemies, since you're doing massive AoE damage, I usually drop this down first, then gas arrow, then flame wall. You'll see in some of the videos though, I forget I have this spell all the time. It's not even required. It's good to use, but I never remember. And that's it for all the spells. Let's go into the support gems, starting with Flame Wall, using Fortress for the ring and using Arcane Tempo for more cast speed. For Toxic Growth, I'm using Bursting Plague, which poisons enemies and causing poison enemies to gain plague for time. Also using Corrosion, which strips armor. I'm not using a support gem on Plague Bearer, probably because of the spirit cost. I haven't looked into why, so I am sorry that I'm missing a step here. With Gas Arrow, we're using Scatter Shot so that we can have more clouds. And we're using Comorbidity for +1 poisons, so we can have more poison on the enemies. For Barrage, we're using Second Wind, so it has just more usage. And Contagion, we're using Magnified Effect so that you get more area effect when you cast it. Onto gear. The key thing to note here is that poison will scale with physical and chaos damage. And so really we want to build physical and chaos damage and also projectile DPS. So with that being said, going on to our gear, you're looking for a bow that can do heavy physical and chaos damage. I have a little bit of lightning here, so you definitely would not want that. I think the most ideal bow you could have is physical chaos damage with +1 to projectile skills and maybe percent physical damage. There's probably a lot of combinations, but again, you're just trying to build chaos and physical damage. Same thing in the quiver. I don't have a great quiver. And for the rest of the gear, I was really building health, evasion rating, and resistances. You can see this helmet has good evasion rating, but no health. I have health and some resistances and evasion rating here. More resistances. I don't have the best gear in the world, but again, I was just trying to build max health, resistances, and evasion. And of course, movement speed on the boots. This amulet for me is really only max life. And on to the passives. So now that we know that poison damage scales on physical and chaos, we're really looking for poison or projectile damage. And so in the beginning of the tree, here you'll see, we have projectile damage and evasion. Going to go projectile damage up to the first node. And then I don't recommend going south first. I recommend going east more. And so really what we're looking for is this cluster here, crippling toxins that will increase the magnitude of your poison. All of these are poison DPS nodes. This node here is another projectile damage node. And coming down, here is Stacking Toxins, which is another poison cluster. And coming even further down, here is Stand and Deliver, which is projectiles do more damage within 2 meters. So far, I have not been playing this build as a crazy range build. Flame Wall has a set distance you can cast. The Toxic Growth cannot, I mean, it can kind of be casted cross screen, but not well. So you really are up close with a bow shooting most enemies. If you find that you're not, you can go Death from Afar, but I did not find that. From here, I end up going a little bit north just for a couple projectile damage nodes. A lot of these are forking and chaining, which I don't think we do. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong. Otherwise, this would be a great cluster, but there's just some more projectile damage there. And after that, I started going into a little bit of survivability. So got some flask lasting concoctions, and then I started going south here to combat alchemy and blur, really making my way down to another cluster here of projectile damage nodes. From here, I'm just guessing at this point. You could head west into more projectile damage. These two nodes, Ricochet and Remorseless, are both projectile damage based nodes. We could head down here into the Arrow class, which definitely has increased damage with bows, which I am hoping scales. You can also look for Poison. Poison does not have a ton around here. To be honest, I guess I'm not entirely sure where the end game of this Ranger build is going to go, which is why this video is titled Early Starter Build. And so far this build has been working. Yeah, I'll make a video once I figure out what's going to work for endgame on this build. I'm just not sure yet. For Ascendancy, I went the Pathfinder build, and with the idea of going first into Overwhelming Toxicity, you get more poisons. This gives you contagious contamination. Your poisons will spread. So that's why I went this build. You'll get more passive points. Your speed is unaffected by slows, which is good for getting out of stuff. You'll move quicker when you are using skills. And then because we also built Flask a little bit into the passive tree, you're going to get Enduring Elixirs, which buffs up your Life Flask. It seems like it fit pretty well. I hope this isn't the wrong choice for Ascendancy. If you guys like these videos, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Until next time.